On the outskirts of a small, forgotten town, there stood a house that no one dared to enter. Its windows were shattered, the paint peeling like dead skin. And the wind always seemed to whisper through its broken walls. The locals said it had been abandoned for decades, ever since the last family mysteriously vanished one stormy night. They would tell stories, hushed and fearful, warning any newcomer to stay far, far away. But some stories aren't meant to be heeded, they're meant to be challenged. And that's where our story begins, on a chilly October evening. A young man named Ethan, drawn by a mixture of curiosity and that reckless thrill of the unknown, decided he would be the one to finally explore the infamous house. His friends had pleaded with him, their faces pale with genuine concern. "You'll never come back the same," they'd warned, "if you come back at all." But Ethan just left, brushing off their warnings as old superstitions. Campfire tales meant to scare children. He thought he knew better. He was wrong. As he pushed open the creaking front door and stepped across the threshold, the air instantly grew thick and unnervingly cold, a stark contrast to the crisp autumn air outside. The door slammed shut behind him with a deafening thud that echoed through the empty halls. Every floorboard groaned under his weight. A chorus of protest from a house that had long been undisturbed. Shadows seemed to dance and writhe along the walls, though the only source of light was the weak, flickering beam of his flashlight. It was then he noticed them strange, unsettling symbols carved into the wooden beams of the ceiling. They looked ancient, almost alive, seeming to squirm and twist just at the edge of his vision. He tried to focus on one, but it would shift, defying his gaze. Suddenly, he heard it, a faint, ethereal whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Ethan, come closer." His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He spun around, his flashlight beam slicing frantically through the oppressive darkness. But he was completely alone, or so he thought. Shaking it off as a trick of the wind, a product of his own heightened nerves, he decided to press on. He wasn't going to be scared off that easily. He made his way up the grand, decaying staircase. Each step threatening to give way beneath him, he decided to explore the upstairs rooms. Drawn deeper into the house's cold embrace. In what must have been the master bedroom, a layer of dust coated everything like a funeral shroud. On a rickety nightstand, he found an old, leather-bound diary. Its pages yellowed and brittle with age. He carefully opened it, the fragile paper crackling under his touch. Most of the entries were mundane, detailing daily life, but the final entry chilled him to the bone. The handwriting was frantic, scrawled, as if written in a desperate hurry. It read, "The voices are coming from the walls. They know our names. We cannot leave. Tonight. They will take us too." Before Ethan could even process the horrifying words, the whispering he'd heard earlier grew louder, more insistent. It surrounded him, a symphony of disembodied voices coming from every direction. The shadows on the walls began to coalesce, darkening and taking shape. They formed the distinct figures of a family, a man, a woman. To small children, the very family that had vanished all those years ago. Their faces were twisted in silent, eternal screams. Their eyes hollow pits of despair. A primal fear he had never known seized him. Ethan ran. He scrambled back down the hallway, but the doors to the rooms he'd just passed slammed shut on their own. One by one, a percussive series of bangs that sealed his fate. He reached the top of the stairs only to find the front door, his only escape, now impossibly far away. The hallway seemed to stretch, elongating before his very eyes, the walls pulsing with a malevolent life of their own. The whispers became clear, articulate words, weaving a chilling invitation. "Stay, forever." Panic surged through him, hot and blinding. He threw himself against the nearest door, battering it with his shoulder, but it was like hitting solid rock. The house was playing with him, twisting its own architecture until he was completely lost in a maze of his own terror. Hours, or maybe it was days, passed. Time had lost all meaning within these cursed walls. Inevitably, his flashlight flickered and died, plunging him into absolute, suffocating darkness. The whispers escalated into shrieks, a deafening chorus of sorrow, anger, and hunger that drilled into his mind. And then, he saw them. In the pitch black, pairs of eyes began to open, hundreds of them, glowing with a faint, predatory light. They were all around him, in the walls, on the ceiling, staring from the floor. They advanced slowly, their collective whispers now a deafening roar, a cacophony calling his name over and over again. Ethan, Ethan, Ethan. He screamed, a raw, hopeless sound that was swallowed by the noise. He felt hands, cold as ice, wrap around his arms, his legs, his neck. They were impossibly strong, pulling him down, pulling him apart. The last thing Ethan saw before the darkness swallowed him completely was a single, shadowy figure leaning in close, its face inches from his own. Whispering with a voice like rustling leaves and graveyard dirt, "You are ours now." The next morning, the old house on the edge of town stood silent, as it always did. The townspeople noticed the broken windows rattling in the autumn wind. Just another day. There was no sign of Ethan. Just like the family before him, he had vanished without a trace. Another soul consumed by the house. And still, at night, when the wind is just right, the whispering continues, a siren's call on the breeze, patiently waiting, luring the next curious soul to its door. Thank you so much for joining me for this terrifying tale. If you enjoyed being scared, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more horror stories every week. Stay safe out there, and whatever you do, don't go exploring any abandoned houses.